God has given all of us a mission to make disciples here and everywhere for the glory of God.
Minus 10, 9.
We want our church to be a launch pad for sending people out on the mission God has for them. Regardless of who you are, we all have a role to play. We are all involved in God's story. We pray that the story shared through Mission Control will encourage you to see how God is calling you to be used by Him. Hello, my name is Amanda Levy, and I'm the Communications Director here at First Baptist Melbourne and the host of this podcast. Today we have Becky Uhlar joining us. I'm very excited. So behind the scenes a little bit, she reached out. They're starting a new ministry. We won't go into all that right now, steal your thunder. But she was like, man, it'd be great if we could have someone come on and talk about grandparenting. And I was like, I think you're volunteering for this. So I'm excited to hear her passion. She's obviously very passionate about the mission God has run right now. And I think it's great. Becky's been a member here for a long time. I just looked it up in our database since 2000.
25 years. We didn't become members until later on. But about 28 years, 27 years. Yeah.
Wow. So were y'all at the downtown campus then?
For a very short while.
And then you moved over here? Nice. Have you lived in Melbourne longer than that?
Pretty much most of my life.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, before we get into all of the things with grandparenting and stuff, I thought it'd be fun to do a space icebreaker question and kind of going with kids. Anyone who has kids or is around kids or is a grandparent knows that kids love to be very imaginative and creative. So I thought we could tap into that today. So, if you were designing your own spaceship for interstellar travel, what feature would be an absolute must-have?
I think a rock climbing feature inside the ship.
A rock.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be great because then also if you're weightless up there, you'd have such good ego. Like, look how good I am.
Yeah. It's just something that I've just come to terms knowing that kids just love to climb.
It's so true.
Especially little boys. So.
It's so true. Because you have now a little girl and a little boy, grandchild. Mm-hmm. One daughter.
Yes.
Very
4
good.
years old.
Yes. Man, that's great.
My daughter is,
your daughter is older than 4.
Yes, only one child, and she is a daughter. My daughter. Mm-hmm.
Nice,
yes,
nice. Okay. Well, okay, so let's get into it.
But let me just share. Can I just share one fun fact about the space? Because I said I grew up pretty much on the space.
Share as
center,
many fun facts as you want about space.
So it's kind of talking about kids.
Yeah.
So when I was young, it was back in the late 60s, and they were shooting off monkeys into space.
Oh, yeah.
It was during that time. And I remember my family going to watch the launch. And when I say watch it, we went to the O'Galley Library Pier.
Okay.
But you could see the
yeah, we're close.
It's great, right?
Yeah.
So it was a launch with one of the monkeys. And as a kid, I thought this monkey was riding on the outside of that spaceship.
Holding on for dear
Holding
life.
on. No, yes, that's exactly how I envisioned it. And it was so crazy. I remember that to this day. And I'm quite a bit older now. So I just thought that kids' minds are just so literal,
So did you ever finally ask about the monkey? How did you come to realize that the monkey was inside the spaceship?
Well, I don't think at the time I really did ask.
Gotcha.
As I grew older, of course. But I did have a little stuffed monkey with an astronaut helmet on, and it was one of my favorite toys. So it was pretty cool. So it's kind of a fun Space Coast fact.
Like, visual of the monkey
exactly.
hugging a rocket.
That's what I was thinking. Go figure.
Well, as much fun as it is to talk about outer space, thought we'd talk a little about your space. So where does God currently have you on mission right now?
Well, he has me on mission in the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And my word for this year is ordinary.
Okay.
Because it's a reminder to me that he can do extraordinary things in my ordinary life.
I like that.
My life as a daughter caring for an aging mother, a wife, a mother, and a grandmother known as Lovey. That's what I go by.
I like it. Nice.
So, yeah. So he has me in various stages of ordinary ministry. But one of the ones that I'm super passionate about is the grandparenting stage of my life. Mm-hmm. like you said, I've been in it for 4 years, and it's been a journey. And through this journey, God has given me the opportunity to serve on the leadership team of the GPS ministry here at First Baptist Melbourne.
GPS, what does that stand for?
Well, it is our goal. It's a grandparenting ministry, and it's our goal to guide, pray, and serve the grandparents and future grandparents of our church. So that's launching. We've been slowly rolling it out, and our official launch date is going to be September the 8th, which is National Grandparents' Day.
Oh, nice.
So I'm super excited. It's going to be such a great ministry to serve a community of grandparents within our church.
What does a GPS ministry look like?
So some fun facts on grandparenting. What do you think the average age of a person becoming a grandparent is?
50, 52,
Close.
55, somewhere
47.
Wow, I was a little older.
What do you think the average age of a grandparent is?
Oh, the average age of it. Well, that's tricky because it could be like, we're going to say 60.
You're bingo.
Am I right on the nail?
Yes, you're right. You did it. So, yes, that's the average age of a grandparent. And the grandparents have a huge influence, second to that of parents in their grandchildren's life. So I'm going to share a little bit why I'm passionate about it and then what the ministry looks like.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
That was right where I was going next, so let's go there.
It kind of leads me right to it.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate, thankful, that I was raised by an intentional biblical grandmother. When I say raised, she invested in me. I was at her house before school, after school, every summer. She was my rock. And this was a grandmother who prayed for me and with me, a grandmother who would take me to Vacation Bible School and to church, a grandmother who helped me navigate some most difficult times in my life, and a grandmother who I have this vision of her seared in my heart and in my mind, of her sitting in her chair, and across I would be sitting on the couch, and she has her Bible open with telling me the love of Jesus and the typical Bible stories we learn as a kid, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel and Lions Den. So my grandmother led me to Christ. And so she had an internal impact on my life. She left her legacy of faith. And that is my goal. And that's the goal of the ministry. When I was in my 30s, I was actually expecting Amy at the time. She passed away. And at that time, my aunt had given me a couple of her Bibles, and I treasured them. And then when I hit my 50th birthday, I'm proud to be a grandma at this age. When I hit 50, my aunt gave me another one of her Bibles. And in it, this is her Bible that my aunt gave me. And in it is a napkin that I had written a sweet message to my grandmother, telling her my grandfather had just passed, telling her my heart, that how much he meant to me, and she meant to me at the time. And in it was the picture of my grandmother in her chair with her Bible open. That image that was seared in my heart.
Yeah.
And so these little, this napkin and photo just reminds me of her love for me.
Yeah.
But this Bible and her other Bibles reminds me of her faith in Jesus and how much she loved me enough to share that faith. So that's the premises of our ministry, is to share our faith generationally. So in this, not all Christian grandparents are in the same situation or alike, right?
Yeah.
So we have grandparents that are doing a great job grandparenting. They're loving on their grandkids, going to the games, doing everything, maybe spoiling them a little bit. But they're just missing that spiritual legacy, that faith legacy to leave on. So we have people in our congregation that may be in that situation. Excuse me. We have grandparents who are blocked, relational issues, relationship issues that create a big barrier. And some of them are there's divorce, or they can't speak the name of Jesus if they want to see their grandkids. So there's a lot, and they need so much encouraging and equipping, as we all do as grandparents. And then there's grandparents that have distance barriers. And I live 3 hours from my grandkids, and I had to overcome that barrier issue. And then there's also grandparents that are doing the intentional legacy leaving love to their grandchildren, and that's their goal, and that's all of our goals. So our ministry wants to come along and equip them to be able to encourage them that they can be this intentional biblical grandparent no matter what situation they are in. Some of them were just unequipped, and that's kind of how I got on this journey.
Yeah.
So I had a grandmother who gave me a perfect example. So in 2020, my daughter and her husband, Danny, gave birth to our first grandchild, and her name is Eden. And since then, they've had a baby boy named Zion. So Eden and Zion are named after God's dwelling places with his people. So so coming alongside them is very important to me. So when she had Eden, and she had a difficult birth, an emergency situation, so I went over there, and I ended up staying for weeks. Great time. Got to pray over that baby. I used to tell her, go through everybody in her family on her dad's side and her mom's side, that they love her by name. And at the end, I would say, but most importantly, let me tell you who loves you more than all of us together, and that's Jesus. So even at 3-4 weeks, I'm trying to be intentional with her so that she knows the name of Jesus. So when the time came for me to leave, Tom came over. They live in the Tampa area. Tom came over and picked me up, and I had to say goodbye to my only daughter and my only granddaughter. That was really tough. And I remember leaving just in tears, going, how am I going to do this? And I was talking with the Lord, going, Lord, I don't know how I'm going to do this. How can I be a grandparent, a grandma, a lovey, if I'm 3 hours away? How do I do this? Because the only example I had was my grandmother.
Who was very, very involved.
Exactly. So that started me on my journey. And through that journey, I realized that I needed equipped. I needed to be equipped. So I prayed. What else do you do when you need help? I got on the internet and started Googling.
Google.
Biblical Christian Year. And I came across a book by Josh Mulvihill. And I looked at his background. He graduated, I believe, from Southern Baptist Seminary. He sat on the board of Awana. I said, he's got to be pretty solid. So I listened to his audiobook called Biblical Grandparenting. And through it, I could just see that this is doable. He pointed me to Scripture, and he pointed me to ways to do this with the distance barrier. So went through his book. And in his book, I believe, is where I learned about the Legacy Coalition, which is a grandparenting online website that they do wonderful resources for grandparents out there. And so I got on their website, and I found just a wealth of information, supercharged, going, okay, I'm on the right path. I really can do this. And I told my friend Jerry about the website, and I said, and they even have a conference for grandparents. I'm there. I want to go, but I had a schedule conflict. I didn't know if I'd be able to do it. So fast forward a few months, because this was a journey. It just didn't happen overnight. I had an opportunity. The Adorn Women's Ministry was having an event, and they had breakout sessions. Well, I taught one of them, and then the other one I attended, and it was on grandparenting. And Grace Snavely was the teacher. And Grace is a perfect example of intentional biblical grandparenting. And so that was super exciting. Jerry and I left and we're like, oh, because we're on the same journey of grandparenting together. And then months went by. This was more towards the fall. She called me and she said, hey, Becky, the church, you know, that grandparenting conference, that summit you wanted to go to, the church is getting a group of people together. Do you want to go? And I was like, okay.
It's a sign.
I'm going. And what was super exciting was that I was on this journey alone.
And now you had a group.
And I knew our church was behind it. So I knew my journey, I was on the right path.
Yeah.
So it was great confirmation.
Yeah.
So we went, learned so much about things I would never even think of about grandparenting, and learned that I was really fortunate to even have a grandparent, because some grandparents, if you ask poll a group of people in a room, did their grandparent influence them? Some of them will say, I never knew my grandparents. They were past, they were gone. Or some say, you know, oh, we would go visit every once in a while, but I play with all the cousins. So they never had that time. So everybody is in a unique situation. And if I thought I could only grandparent because of my grandmother's example, what if I didn't have an example?
Yeah.
So that's why we were at this conference, Dennis and Nancy. There was like 5 of us. 3 of them were staff, and it was the 2 of us, Jerry and I. And Dennis had shared with his heart that he'd been trying to, this was his goal, to start a grandparenting ministry. So we left, and the conference was over, and Jerry and I looked at each other and said, we're in, all in, whatever it takes. And so that's how I got involved. And I just know this is so important for grandparents to be able to have a community to go to for that encouraging and equipping. And
So in your mind, is this a group that meets semi-regularly? Is this a series of conferences? Is this just a community one can tap into? What is?
So because we're rolling it out, and you know how things happen organically when you're trying to start out with a new ministry or idea. And so at first we did offer a 6 weeks course called Grandparenting Matters. And we offered it, and we had a pretty decent turnout, and people were amazed at what they learned through that course. And that's through the Legacy Coalition. So the material is there for us as a church to tap into. So we did that. We're going to be offering it again in September, starting September 15th on a Sunday morning. And what it does is it just makes all of the grandparents understand that there is more to grandparenting than just loving on them, and we are to leave that legacy of faith, and we're to leave that for all the people we come in contact, right? And even if you're not a grandparent or even a parent, we all can be spiritual grandparents. So so our goal is to offer some, I'll call them grow groups. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but that's my terminology.
Sounds good to me.
So it's an opportunity for us to grow together. And I think next year, as we kind of plan out next year, our goal is to offer a couple more learning how to be equipped, and also maybe have a grand event where we can bring our grandkids and the grandparents together. We have some visions of some adopting some local families in our church that maybe their grandparents are distant. And we can do things like that to help them out. Just come alongside our children in the children in the congregation of the church, because our goal of a grandparent is to influence. So, important note that it's very difficult for adult or grandparents with adult children is to reduce control.
Yes.
That's a hard thing.
It is a hard thing.
You're going to find out.
I know. It's a hard thing for me with my preschoolers. So
when you when a grandparent or a parent, I'll call them grandparents because that's the stage.
Yeah.
But a grandparent exhibits control, their influence goes down.
Mm.
And if they release that control, the influence will go up. And one thing I learned at the conference that I've used, and it works wonderfully, but it's hard, is that unwelcome advice is always taken as criticism. So you know how we like to say, well, this is how we did it when you were little, and all. We really have to tamper that down. So it teaches us what our roles are, because it's very specific on what our roles are. It's to come alongside the parents of our grandchildren.
Yeah, our children,
Yeah, and most importantly, to have that welcome mat out. So if there's relationships that need to be mended, we need to have a welcome mat out so that when our grandkids come over, in our children, they know they're always welcome there. They're going to be loved unconditionally, and we're going to listen and be there. And you have preschoolers, right? What do they tell you? You have to get down to their eye level to talk, right?
Yeah.
Well, as grandparents, we have to get to the eye level to talk to our grandchildren. So it's easy as preschoolers. We can incorporate the gospel and creation. We can talk so many opportunities.
Sure.
But as they get older and this worldview is trying to creep in, we have to be prepared. So we need to know what culture's telling them. We need to be able to answer and defend the Bible stance on that. And this is another very important fact that I learned at Grace. This is all my little tools I've been collecting from my toolbox.
I like it.
But Grace said when in the grandparenting class, she said, if one of her grandkids is into soccer, she learns everything there is to know
About soccer.
Right.
Yeah.
She has a lot of grandkids. So she has a lot of knowledge on a lot of different subjects. I only have two. But because what happens is if we can talk to them about something they're passionate about, and they know what we're saying is true about that sport or whatever, they're going to trust what we say about Jesus.
And they're going to be willing to meet you at somewhere that you're passionate about because you've already met them halfway.
Yeah, because it's a relationship.
Yeah.
And I was just telling my husband the other day after one of the sermons, I've never doubted that this is the Word of God because my grandmother said it and I believed it. But that's not what we're up against right now in our society. So they want to be proven everything, the younger generation. So we have to be prepared to just come alongside them and show them the truth.
So prior to all of this, did you have an awareness of the big deal-o-meter of grandparenting prior to Amy having her first, or was that the big aha moment where it clicked for you?
No, I really didn't. I really just wanted to be like my grandmother. I knew how it impacted my life eternally. I knew how much she loved me, and I just wanted to do the same for my grandkids. It wasn't until that I started going through this journey that I realized that grandparenting is huge, and I knew the influence. I'm a byproduct of that influence, but I just took it for granted. I thought everybody. It shocked me when we did that exercise and went around the table and asked, did they have a grandparent that was, influenced them, and so many different answers. And then I realized their equipping is even harder because they didn't even have an example, maybe, you know. So that's why I'm passionate about getting the opportunity out there for the grandparents. And a barrier has been...
You're just taking all my questions.
I'm sorry.
No, that's great.
I didn't want to do this.
No.
I wanted you to pause.
No,
you're
great.
I'm so passionate about it.
I think it's great because I'm sitting in my head. I'm like, okay, I would love to talk about barriers and roadblocks. And then literally the next words out of your mouth. And the barriers, I was like, I like this.
I'm sorry.
No, it's going organically. It's wonderful.
I wouldn't just be like a volcano and just go.
I like it.
But some of the barriers that we find is especially in the older senior adults, in their 80s, they say, well, my grandchildren are grown. They're having kids of their own. And let me tell you, we're a grandparent. We're a parent. Most importantly, we are to be on mission until we take our last breath. We are to flourish. And yes, there's times where maybe you can't even get out of the house. But if your mind is able, you could be a prayer warrior like no other, right? I think that is one of the barriers. And then I worked in the youth for 8 years, and I used to tell my 11th graders, don't be like the lobsters in the pot, slowly boiling, because this is your world view. It's slowly conforming you. Be alert. Put on your armor. Be alert. Well, I'm telling them this thinking, I'm older. I'm older. Well, I realized the culture does that to us, too, as grandparents. Tells you, you raised your kids. Go out, travel,
relax,
spend all your money. Live in communities that just want to have a fun time. No kids. That's not what we're called biblically to do. So we, too, have to be on guard that we are not being in that pot slowly boiling, because we're missing out some great opportunities to leave a legacy of faith.
I could see and I could imagine. I really have to imagine. But as you get older and you see slat, this is the visual that's coming out of my mind. When you throw out a line and then the line is so far away to where you need to come back to, I could see how it would be difficult to be like, I don't know that I have it in me to pull it back to where I want to be or need to be in that. So what advice would you have for someone who's maybe feeling that tension and feeling that roadblock?
Well, I think that you have to just, of course, be in prayer and in the Word, and really think about it as we're not doing it because of our needs or wants or desires. We're doing it for the kingdom purpose. Larry Fowler, who is the the Legacy Coalition founder, he says it this way: you watch one, think two. And watch one, teach two, think four. Okay.
What does that mean?
It means we're going to watch ourselves. We're going to be deeply rooted in communion with God. And then we're going to teach them to our children and their children. Right? And then we are going to be preparing our grandchildren so that they too will be biblical.
To do the same.
To leave that legacy of faith for 4 generations on.
Okay.
So many times throughout the Bible, right? God told the Israelites to do certain things, each generation, to keep His word. And so I think we have to remove ourselves out of the equation and just say, okay, this might be hard. I have to mend some broken relationships. I'm too old for this. No. One step, tiny steps. And I think that they can do that through the provision of God's strength. Won't be easy, and but it's fruitful. And nowhere in the Bible does it say anything about the word grandparent, right? But it talks to us so clearly what we have to do to prepare the next generation. And so I'm excited because my grandmother prepared me. I prepared my daughter. And I'm preparing Eden and Zion. And it's my prayer. It was my prayer before they even had their children, that they would have generations after generations of godly people come from any child they raise in their home. And this was a prayer I had way before. It's when they got married. And so I was thinking that because of what I had available to my past. So that was what I would tell people. You just have to do it. Sometimes it's not fun or uncomfortable or takes a lot of work. And when you get older, it's a lot harder.
You just get more tired.
Yes.
So you brought some books. Do you have any materials you recommend or books you recommend for someone who's sitting there like, I would love to read something now or get into this
I think
now?
the first book you could read is the book that I listened to, is Josh Malvahill's Biblical Grandparenting. Go out on the Legacy Coalition. There's a wealth of knowledge out there and resources. They even have little calendars that you can use every month to incorporate prayer prompts or just little tips to help you.
Yeah.
I picked up somewhere along the way I send mail to my grandkids.
Okay.
They love mail. Kids love to get mail. So
Yeah.
I send them stickers, and so just little things like that.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, start there.
Okay. What's the book you have here?
This is Equipping Grandparents. And this book is really been our little guidebook for our ministry.
Okay.
Because it tells us what is intentional biblical grandparenting, why grandparenting matters. It tells us how we can go about trying to set up a ministry in our church. And so we kind of use this as our little book to get our launching of the ministry going. We had everybody on the team read this book. And
Nice. Who all is on your team?
so
Or rather, how many people are on your team?
we have about I say 6 couples and then 3 single
Okay.
ladies, widows,
Nice.
or single.
Yeah.
And they're all in different
Stages.
and different situations, and so this is a good step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been very passionate about grandparenting, starting this ministry. What advice do you have for someone who's trying to figure out where God kind of wants to plug them in ministry?
Well, of course, again, to pray, to be in the Word, but also to seek counsel from other godly people. I think God just really puts things out there. We just have to be on the alert to recognize it.
Yeah.
And through my journey, when I first started out, I didn't know I was on a journey.
Yeah.
I was just on my own
You were
private.
just gathering your own information for yourself. No
Right.
idea that it would be to pour out to others.
Exactly. So I think, and he does, you can see, his handiwork in all of it, the timing. And I think if you're having his kingdom purpose in mind, he's gonna show you. Just pray for that ability to be aware and alert. And I think that's the hardest part, because there's so much going on in our world. We're working, we're doing so much, we're involved in so many things that sometimes he's going, hello.
Are you here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, what advice would you have for someone who is seeking to answer the call to make disciples here and everywhere for the glory of God?
Just do it. You just have to do it. There's no greater purpose, really. And it might be in the ordinary, or you might travel and be an international missionary. We can all be on mission for the glory of God right here in our ordinary little lives in Melbourne, Florida.
Yeah, I like that. Thanks for coming on, Becky. I'm excited to see how this might be used and the impact from others listening to it, whether they're a grandparent themselves or will one day be a grandparent. Or I feel like it's applicable to so many. It's there. So I'm excited to see how this plays out for you.
Well, thank you. Be praying for the ministry.
Will do. Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mission Control. If you're interested in learning more about Launch 10X and the different ways to get involved in what God is doing here at First Baptist Melbourne, a great place to start would be visiting our website, launchme.church.